gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is Friday, June 14th, and I would like to thank everyone for starting off your day with Good Morning CaneSport with myself and Stephen Wagner. We have a ton of Miami Hurricanes news for you guys today, but first we're going to start off with our continuing series of the State of the U. Today, we continue the breakdown of the Miami Hurricanes' recent recruiting classes, and we land on the 2023 class and take a deep dive into that. So make sure to check that out. Steven, I want to ask you about that 2023 class because that's the first class that we saw actually play at Miami under Coach Cristobal, his full recruiting class, that 2023 group. Guys like Ruben Bain, Mark Fletcher, Emory Williams, Riley Williams, and a bunch of guys, Francis Malinoa as well. A lot of big-time names are out of that class. Some are still in the program. Some have left, guys like Jaden Wayne and then Collins Achimapong. So a successful amount of guys in that class. But, Steven, I want to get your overall thoughts about that 2023 class. Freshman year is already in the books, now leading into the sophomore year. And there's some dogs and guys that are expected to be big-time contributors out of the 2023 class. Who are some guys off the top of your head that you really think are going to be big impact players for the Hurricanes moving forward?
Well, I mean, obviously there are a few who we already know are impact players. Ruben Bain, I think he can be an All-American if he stays healthy. I think it's just going to determine whether or not he's able to stay healthy. Heck, he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick. Francis Malinoa, we've already seen what he can do. He's absolutely going to have All-American potential. I mean, the comparisons to Penei Sewell are, it's almost eerily similar. And then, Mark Fletcher as well, obviously. He emerged as a very big contributor last year. I think it's just going to depend whether or not he can stay healthy. But, I mean, Miami's also getting to the point where, they have a few guys who look like, we're kind of hoping that they're going to be able to turn that corner this year. One of the first guys that kind of pops out to me is Ray Joseph, because I was really, really high on Ray coming out of high school. Didn't have an opportunity to do a ton of stuff last year. We saw him get a little bit of action on special teams. We saw him, kind of get, reps here and there at receiver, but, he wasn't consistently on the field. And, there shouldn't be a ton of pressure for true freshmen to, come in and have immediate impact and, contribute, very, very, very serious playing time. But at the same time, whenever you do have some of these 4-star recruits who are pretty highly ranked, I don't think it's outrageous for a school or for a fan base to, kind of get a little bit excited about maybe getting a chance to watch them early. But yeah, pretty much. I'd say Ray is really the guy who I'm most looking forward to. Of course, there are also, there's also different guys like Samson Okinola. Hopefully he's going to get to the point where he's ready to, come in and be a real starter. Riley Williams looked awesome in the spring game. I am really, really excited about Riley. He looked like he took a huge jump this offseason. It kind of looks like the game is starting to get to the point where it slows down for him, which is going to be really, really big if he can be, half of the prospect that, he was touted as. He ended up being the number 4 tight end in the class. So if he actually plays like the number 4 tight end in the class, he's going to be really, really special. Really curious to see what happens with the Washington brothers. Emory Williams, we've already seen, what he is and what he can do. At the very least, he's accurate, he's consistent, and he's a really, really competitive fighter. And, more generally, it doesn't look like there were, a crazy number of swings and just misses in the 2023 class. You've got guys like Colin Tachiampong, who are, already on, or who've already departed. Yes, you're going to have a guy like, Marcelius Pulliam or whomever who, things just didn't work out for, or Jaden Wayne or what have you. But overall, there aren't a ton of guys who, we're really ready to write off just yet. And it looks like for the most part, that talent evaluation was pretty good.
Yeah, I think Matt did a great job. I know he had a message board post a few days ago where he kind of compared, obviously, Alabama's the top of the college football world right now, or was at the top of the college football world right now with Nick Saban at the helm. But he kind of broke down one of their classes, and it was one with guys like Bryce Young and Will Anderson, and those elite level programs are at about a 45 to 50% hit rate. And then he compared Miami's class, I believe it was a 2020 class. There's about 20% of those guys that are considered hits, guys that made an impact at the college level or got drafted. So it's pretty interesting to see just the big gap between, the guys, Alabama's evaluated and bring in. Obviously, like I said, that's the standard of college football. They were at their prime back then, and then just Miami, a program that's kind of been, stagnant the last 20 years. And you see the big difference is recruiting, and that really does help. Mario Cristobal is looking to land his third consecutive top 10 class in the 2025 cycle. He's bringing in those dudes. Now we're going to start seeing if they hit. And I think a few more guys that, I want to talk about in the 2023 class. I want to mention a guy like Christopher Johnson Jr., speedster that, in the backfield is a little bit crowded, but I feel like he's going to be the change of pace type of back with Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez kind of leading that loaders of bruisers, run through guys, and then a speedster like Chris Johnson Jr. Another guy, Joshua Horton. He has the size. If you see this kid, he is massive, and I feel like he can kind of potentially carve himself a role out in the defensive line this year. Popo Aguirre, another 2023 guy that I think could potentially take that next step this year and join those guys like Ruben Bain, Mark Fletcher, and Francis Mainoa as big time contributors. So it's going to be their second year on campus. Obviously, you can't ask these kids to be world beaters right away, but I do like what I've seen from this 2023 class, and I'm excited to see what they can do this year and beyond for the Cane. So make sure to check out, Matt's great job of kind of taking a deep dive in that 2023 class and, breaking down those guys and, seeing what they're bringing to the table early on in their career. Too early, like Steven said, to call these guys misses or anything like that, but, so some great potential in that 2023 group, which is Mario Cristobal's first full cycle as the head coach of the Canes. I want to continue another analysis that we have on site today. We continue our countdown of the top 50 roster players for the Hurricanes and look at the depth charts as well. We're at number 16, Daryl Porter Jr., who some people have a lot of mixed feelings on. Me, personally, I'm a huge fan of Daryl Porter Jr. I think he quietly had an amazing season last year. He didn't have, the picks or the stats to kind of pop out and say, hey, who's this kid? PFF, take it as you want. It graded him fairly high. And I think he's going to be Miami's best cover corner this year. He was sound in tackling. I don't remember him kind of missing any open field tackles. He always did his job. And sometimes that goes unnoticed, and I love Daryl Porter Jr., and I think he's going to take a big step this upcoming fall. Steven, what are your thoughts on Daryl Porter and kind of the type of player he is?
Yeah, I mean, he is solid, and he is deserving to be a starter on this roster. But, I've never really had moments where I watched him and I thought like, oh, man, like that's a dude who is going to be a stud on Sundays in the NFL. I mean, yeah, he's good, but I mean, how excited can you get about good or serviceable? Because that's kind of the way that I feel about Porter. And, no disrespect to him. I mean, he's absolutely earned a starting spot on Miami's roster. And I do think he's the best option right now. But I mean, Miami wants to keep, they want to keep upgrading the position. They're hoping that they can bring in, DJ Pickett in this year's class. They're hoping that Damari Brown turns into the player that a lot of people are really thinking and hoping that he can be, and the type of player we kind of started to see a little bit last year. Robert Stafford, maybe he's not quite as far along, but that was another cornerback that, a lot of people were really, really high on whenever he came in. I mean, I think that, that right now that is the best option. Yeah. And, it really is fine to say, okay, yeah, we can get, we can get behind this guy. He is the guy for now, but I mean, quite frankly, whenever you're at a school like Miami that, for a really long time wanted to make the argument that they were DBU, you do hope that you're producing the kind of defensive backs that, you kind of think of whenever you think of a place like DBU. Porter's good, but I mean, is he, the top level DBU standard good? I mean, personally, for me, I don't think so, but that shouldn't take anything away from the fact that he is a starter. He's absolutely a starter on this roster, but simultaneously, Miami can also want to continue to upgrade at the position.
Yeah, no, I really do want to see kind of if he takes that next step this upcoming fall. Like you mentioned, he did good last year. Nothing, too eye popping. Like I mentioned, doesn't have the 5-6 interceptions that you want. Your starting number one corner to have or want. But I feel like Daryl Porter Jr. Has that juice, and I think this upcoming fall he's going to show it. I want to hear what you all have to say at home. What are your thoughts on Daryl Porter Jr.? I know a lot of you guys want to comment things like that. So, just do you think Daryl Porter Jr. is kind of solidified himself as a number one cornerback in Miami, or do you guys still have question marks? Really want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. So make sure to check out that on him. He comes in as the number 16th overall prospect on this current roster for the Hurricanes. Matt Shadell, like I said, did a great job of breaking down the top 50 guys. So make sure to check out that update on him. Going to make a move, stop talking about the current team, talk about the future of this program. Another big recruiting weekend down in Coral Gables. Kicked off a little bit early with the Canes hosting a pair of top wide receivers in Vernell Brown and Jamie Frentz. Vernell Brown wrapped up his visit this morning. We had the chance to catch up with him. Steven, he had a lot of great things to say about Miami. Called the OV monumental, spoke about his relationship with Kevin Beard and the Hurricanes' detailed plans for him if he committed to Miami and enrolled with the Canes. Steven, what are your thoughts about Vernell's OV to Miami? Just what are some things that stood out to you, when you had the chance to catch up with him?
Yeah, Miami can thank Kevin Beard for the position that they're in with Vernell Brown right now. I mean, he really has emerged as a really, really good recruiter. The relationships that he's able to build with these kids are, second to none. The way that he's able to connect to these kids, relate to them, really develop that, intimate level of trust with these different players. I mean, he's just able to connect with so many of these guys like no one else is able to. And I think part of that does come from himself being a high school football star in South Florida that ends up going to the University of Miami. He himself was in the shoes that a lot of these kids were in all of those years ago. He knows what it takes to play at Miami on a team that's good enough to compete for championships. He knows what it takes to compete at the highest level. He's been on staffs that are certainly capable of winning national championships. Like Kevin Beard, you want to talk about what's like I just said, you want to talk about what's keeping Vernell Brown in this what's keeping Miami in this recruitment for Vernell Brown. It really is Kevin Beard. I mean, I'm sure some of you saw that video on Twitter of Kevin Beard doing a backflip with Vernell Brown. You see that kind of stuff and you say, yeah, that's kind of cool. And, Vernell himself said, I feel like it kind of just paints a picture of, the type of relationship that we have. I do think that Miami still has a little bit of a ways to go. Ohio State still makes me a little bit uneasy. And then obviously being a Florida legacy, never count out Florida. He's going to take that OV to Florida State as well. I think he's actually taking an OV to Florida right now, and then he'll take that official visit to Florida State this weekend. We're nowhere close. We're nowhere close to done just yet. But Miami definitely did help their chances in a really big way this weekend.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I wanted to kind of talk about that Kevin Beard backflip that we saw. I feel like that is the craziest thing ever. This man is 43 years old in slacks, just 1, 2, 3, hit a backflip. I feel like you can't practice that. That's muscle memory. He's probably done that a million times, back when he was half his age. But hitting that right then and there, I feel like that should earn him a commitment right there from Vernell Brown. But in all seriousness, like you mentioned, he's on that OV to Florida right now. He should be getting up to Gainesville. After wrapping up that trip to Coral Gables yesterday, he kind of said it himself as well. He's kind of said, I've only taken 2 OVs and I want to see, all 4 of these final schools and kind of make my decision from there. I think Miami did a great job of kind of moving that needle in their favor this weekend, but it's going to be a contested fight for one of the best, wide receivers in the country, Vernell Brown. I'm excited to see if Coach Kevin Beard can pull it off and, reel him in, beat out Ohio State, beat out, Florida, the legacy school, and then those guys up in Tallahassee as well. So recruitment, we're going to be all over, and we have that update. Steven did a great job with that one, catching up with Vernell Brown. And then another top receiver that was on campus as well earlier this week was Jamie Frentz. We haven't had the chance to, speak with him directly, but we're hearing a lot of great things out of that visit. So stay tuned on the site for that upcoming update on him. Another coveted wide receiver Miami hosted in that midweek period. Having those two guys down, I think, was a great move by the Hurricanes and that staff. And I think they have a great chance to have a great shot at landing both of those guys. So we'll just have to keep up with them and see how that eventually ends up. Earlier this morning, most of the guys started making their way to Coral Gables. The rest of the weekend visitors, a ton of big-time prospects headlined by five-star cornerback DJ Pickett and company. Steven, off the top of your head, I know you wrote a story about it. What are some storylines that you're, really, really monitoring Friday morning as the official visits start and then end on Sunday as well?
Yeah, so I actually ended up leaving DJ Pickett out of the storylines to monitor, just because this weekend I really don't know, how much we can really monitor in terms of, how much Miami can help their chances, because it's been clear for a while now that this is really going to come down to what Miami can do during the season. This is a chance to roll out the red carpet, and that shouldn't be overlooked. But if Miami wants DJ Pickett, they got to win this fall. I mean, it really is simple as that. You want the best, you got to play like you're the best. But a couple different storylines that I'm interested in watching is with one of these guys, Myron Charles, 4-star defensive tackle. It's kind of emerged that Texas and Florida State are kind of in the two best positions for him. He's got a big affinity for Florida State, and apparently the Texas staff has some sort of connection to him and his camp that I'm not really sure what it is. But it seems like those two programs have kind of emerged. This guy's a top 60 defensive tackle, and I think if Miami wants to, really make themselves like one of the top contenders in this race, they're going to need to do something to stand out this weekend. They really are going to need to find a way to stand out. Show him something that, he hasn't seen before at other programs, show him what he's not going to be able to get at other programs, whatever that might be. Then another one that I'm really interested in is Chris Ewald and Amari Wallace, two local 4-star defensive backs. I'm really, really curious to see if Miami can shore up their position with both of them, because I've RPM'd both of these guys to Miami already. I put those in back in March. However, and I still like the chances that Miami has with both of these guys. However, something that I'm going to kind of continue to monitor throughout the week, or throughout the course of next week, is the fact that both of these guys are still going to take additional official visits after Miami. So Amari Wallace is going to go to Louisville next week. Chris Ewald's going to go to Georgia. Ewald's going to announce a commitment on June 27th, just a little under 2 weeks from now. And Amari Wallace is probably going to pull the trigger by the end of the summer. So can Miami go ahead and shore up their position one final time, even though another school is going to have a chance to capture the last bit of momentum going into the summer? That's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah, we'll have you guys covered with all the information coming out of a busy recruiting weekend, the third recruiting weekend in the summer. And I feel like, these weekends are flying by. Canes are also set to have another 7-on-7 tournament this Sunday with a lot of 2026, 2027 prospects on hand, showcasing their talents, trying to earn that coveted offer from the Canes. And I want to talk a little bit about baseball before we wrap up today's show. Crazy news. I think this was actually wild. First off, I want to start with Blake Sear. Hollywood had a stellar freshman campaign down at Miami, and then kind of was derailed by injuries and, other things like that. His sophomore year actually transferred to the University of Florida. So he's swapping out the orange and green for the blue and orange up there in Gainesville. But the Hurricanes did also manage to keep Daniel Cuvée, who won for earned freshman All-American honors, one of the best players for the Hurricanes in general on this team this past season. I think that was a major win for Coach JD and his staff, keeping him. I'm not sure if there was other programs trying to poach him away, but I feel like that's hard not to think after the amazing freshman campaign that he had. They're really active in the portal too, bringing some extra arms and things like that. Steven, I know you're a huge baseball guy. What do you think it's going to take for Coach JD and this program to kind of flip things around and have a much better year two than what happened this past season?
I mean, pitching. They have to find a way to get some bullpen depth. I mean, you look at all of the teams that are in the College World Series right now. All of these teams are 2, 3 starters deep, and then they've got reliable bullpen options that they can go to. I mean, Miami's a baseball program that legitimately can have national championship standards. I mean, they were a fixture in the College World Series for what felt like forever. This is a team that threw away its this is a university that threw away its basketball program so that they could keep playing baseball. They were winning baseball national championships while football was winning football national championships. I mean, this is a really, really good and storied baseball program. And you look at, what's going on in the College World Series right now, the number of arms that are in all of these bullpens. I mean, they're set up to be able to play 3 games in 3 days and have the arms to get through it all. They have the ability to use 6 different arms over the course of those 3 days. And until Miami gets to the point where they have that level of bullpen depth, I'm kind of having a hard time seeing how Miami can really compete on a major national level. I mean, that was really what the issue was last year too. I mean, and we saw that exposed in the Coral Gables regional. Whenever they were, whenever they finally got to the point where they were playing against Texas in their own regional, in a regional where I thought Miami was the best team and should have won. I mean, and Texas was not a great team last year either, but Miami did not have the depth in the bullpen that Texas had, and Texas kind of took it to them. So until Miami gets to the point where they have that level of depth, I really am not going to love, Miami's chances to consistently get out of regionals and super regionals. I mean, I do whatever you got to do, but man, they got to find a way to get more bullpen depth.
Yeah, I think you saw that too as well in the ACC semis. They made that pretty surprising run. They had Duke within knockout distance, and then it kind of just fell apart in the last few innings with pitching. You bring in 3 or 4 guys, and Duke just starts to heat up at the plate, and your season's over just like that when you're in arm's reach within making that ACC championship and earning a automatic bid. But things fell apart. But I'm excited to see what Coach JD can do next year. I feel like that ACC run kind of gave people a little bit to look for next season, even though as bad as the year that they had, it showed these guys had some fight. Obviously, the roster is going to look much different with guys leaving and coming in through the portal. But, at first I wasn't the biggest fan of that hire with Coach JD, but now I'm kind of, saying, hey, he's a local guy. He's from the area. He played at Miami. He had success at Miami. Give him at least, 2 or 3 years. We're seeing it with the football program. I feel like it's kind of similar comparison, not exactly. You bring in a guy that knows the program, a program that's been successful for, and a guy that's trying to revitalize it. So it'd be interesting to see, what happens the remainder of the offseason, which guys they bring in, which guys can they keep, and which guys depart the program. But we're going to have you covered with some more baseball news when that does, develop it and we get more info on that. So make sure to, stay tuned on the site and look out for that in the coming weeks. That's all that we have for this episode of Good Morning CaneSport. I really thank you all for starting your Friday morning with Wags and I. Make sure to check out everything that we have on the site and stay tuned for anything else that might come up throughout this Friday. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day.